Well, welcome back to the DCL Podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I am your host, Lake, and I am joined by my co-host, Christy. Christy, how are we today?
We are great, Lake. How are you?
Doing pretty good. This is always a fun episode we get to do about 4 times a year here because we have a schedule release. And this is kind of a fun one because some of the ships that we tend to gloss over and say, they're doing the same thing are not doing the same thing. In fact, a lot of the ships are switching it up.
And this is the first time that I am aware of that Disney Cruise Line released sort of 2 seasons. So we had fall. Maybe they don't want us doing these shows anymore. That's rude. But we have fall and spring coming out at the same time. So fall 2025 and spring 2026 itineraries.
I wonder if they're just trying to move more towards what the current industry standard is, where you can book cruises, usually 2 years out, if not longer for some cruise lines. Like, most of these schedules are already set. They know where these ships are going. And we know that because a lot of times ports get leaked, especially when we're talking about where new ships are going.
Right.
So It's not like this isn't set already.
Right. Well, I'm glad that they've done it this way. I'll be curious how the result, how it's going to play out. I don't always receive a ton for fall, but usually I would receive some for spring. And I have very few people who've reached out to book 2025 and 6 already. So yeah, I guess I'm going to be curious to see how this goes for them. Obviously, summer's the biggest release for DCL in terms of bookings, in my opinion. But
spring should be your next best one, typically.
Yeah,
and now
spring breaks and stuff.
Some of the ships kind of miss off on some of that depending on where they are and what they're doing right now. But also a lot of people are either A, on vacation, or B, getting ready for sailings. So they're probably not quite thinking about what they want to do in the spring 2 years from now.
Well, and some spring break schedules aren't out yet. There are some that are, of course, for the 25-26 school year, but not, 25-26 school year. But all of them aren't out. But it is smart for them to do this because other cruise lines do. And when somebody does have their schedule out, they want to look to see where could we go and, stop them from, maybe Disney wants to stop them from booking Royal Caribbean or somebody else. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this goes. Obviously, with fall, they have the holiday sailings and then the specialty sailings of Halloween as well as then, Halloween on the high seas and Very Merry Time. And I'll note that I sort of feel like for once we actually get the information early. Ooh, look at you, fancy pants. The information early to show us which is a Maritime cruise and which is a Halloween cruise. Because I feel like half the time, all the time, right? I would get
it's late.
It comes out after the bookings. And so people might book like a November 2nd cruise and think they're going to get a Maritime and they don't, and they're disappointed, or maybe they don't want a Maritime and they get one, right? Things like that. So I really appreciate that we have this information in advance, and that is on the booking schedule, which is yay, Disney. Well done.
Yep. And if you look at the chart that I had just pulled up here, it is all of the Very Merry Time and Halloween on the High Seas are marked with the asterisks.
Yep.
Whereas the asterisks used to designate some sort of change in the itinerary. That is not the case for this one. Everything is basically lined if it is a different itinerary. But should we get into where these ships are going?
Yes. Let's start with the easy. Well, let's start with the missing ships, first of all. So in theory, in fall 2025, we should have the Destiny sailing at some point and the Adventure, and Disney has told us this. So we don't have any information about that. One of our listeners did suggest that maybe this information would come out in D23, which is super logical. Obviously, it makes us wait but that is in August, correct?
That is in August.
So maybe that is when we'll see it. I think that's a really logical place. But in terms of this schedule, let's start at the easiest one and go to the treasure, which is kind of funny that we always sort of.
Do we want to stick to the Destiny for just a minute?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay, so.
Well, no, let's do that at the end.
Wait till the end? Okay, we'll hold the Destiny off till the end.
Yep.
Are we starting with the Wish then?
No, I think we should start with the treasure because it's literally the easiest.
Oh, you're right. The treasure.
So the treasure is doing their 7-night alternating Eastern and Western Caribbean itineraries. There's basically no one-offs. It's the same rotating Eastern and Western Saturday to Saturday sailings. Couple of notes that November 1st is on the treasure is not a Halloween or a Christmas cruise. So I feel like that is, just something to know. If you want the treasure to look like her original self, you could take that cruise. And then I really wonder if this is going to hold true, but oh, never mind. I lied. I thought that there was a late December cruise that was a maritime cruise, but I had the wrong month. So same thing as normal. Just, I am still shocked by this, that there are, once Christmas has ended, Christmas is over on the Disney ships, even though it goes well into January at the parks. So if Christmas has ended, like Christmas Day is over and your cruise leaves after that, there will not be a maritime cruise. So just don't expect it. Like they clean out that tree in the lobby
right away.
Right away.
And we will note these are all still the traditional Castaway Key stops.
Yep.
They have not incorporated any lighthouse into these 7-night sailings for the treasure.
And no new ports. Western is Cozumel, the Caymans, Falmouth, Castaway, 2 days at sea. And the Eastern is Tortola, St. Thomas, Castaway, and 3 days at sea.
We say unexciting, but I haven't done either of these itineraries. And I am looking forward to potentially booking that Eastern one.
Yay. Wait, have you never done them ever in your life?
No, because I've never been on the Fantasy.
But on another cruise line?
No.
Wow.
All of my non-Disney cruises have been like Mediterranean, Alaska.
We're fancy. Okay.
I would like to note that Christy was on the Disney Wonder when I was on the Norwegian Bliss the same week.
Yes.
But I'm the fancy one. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on.
All
Those
right.
are good, solid cruises, by the way. But we'll move on now.
Well, why don't we stick with Port Canaveral and we'll talk about the Wish, which for the first time since it started sailing, is going to have a slight shakeup.
Yep.
So it is still doing 3 and 4 night sailings. The 3-night sailings have not changed. They are still your Castaway and your Nassau stop. Pretty standard there. But you're getting a little bit of mix up with the 4 nights where it's doing a couple different things. It does still have a couple of the Nassau Castaway Day at Seas, but then it also is mixing in some Castaway Lighthouse Day at Seas.
Yeah, those to me are extra exciting to be on the Wish, to get to go to Lookout, to get to go to Castaway. So, and there's a lot of sailings that do that. And then a day at sea, because it's hard to get a day at sea on the Wish. That's also going to have it'll have 2 stops, but it'll go to Nassau, Nassau's fine. It's a lovely place. But, nowadays most people aren't getting off. So this is exciting anyway. And the Castaway Lookout days are not going to Nassau. Just the day at sea. That's super exciting.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them too. It's not like it's a 1-off or 2-off. Like it's almost half of its 4-night sailings have switched to this.
Yes.
Which is pretty interesting.
And then there are some, did we say this out loud, that are just going to Lookout and Nassau that aren't going to Castaway at all.
Yep. So there's also 4-night Day at Sea Lookout Nassau itineraries as well.
So exciting.
Yeah, a little bit of switch up on that 4 night, which is kind of nice. Something a little bit different, especially if you were looking to see the new island. You know, we had kind of thought that maybe the new ships weren't going to go to it, so they would push the older ships for you to want to book those, especially out of Fort Lauderdale, which we will get to. But it's nice to see that the Wish is going to be making some stops there too.
Yeah, I love that. It'll also be interesting. So with the schedule, especially for the Wish, and if you're getting into spring break, you really, with spring break, the week is the week. So you're going to take your 4-night cruise when your kids, like if you're choosing that one, when your kids are on, or if you're a teacher and you have to take it during that break. And it'll be like a mystery. Which islands are we going to go to? I mean, you'll know before the cruise, but you won't know
which week you fall on.
Yeah, you don't get to pick.
Yeah, so why don't we stick with Port Canaveral here? We do have the Fantasy staying in Port Canaveral, which is not what I think most of us would guess, which we will talk about a little bit later. Now, it does have to come back from Europe. It has a 13-night westbound transatlantic on October 20th. You're going to 2 stops in Spain, stop in Portugal, and then 9 lovely days at sea.
And it's like a really late because it's doing the
dry dock.
Yeah. October 20th. I feel like Disney doesn't give a good October transatlantic ever, unless there's a dry dock situation. So I like that.
Yeah.
Things up for people.
I would not be surprised if that one, when it comes time, has... I mean, typically the transatlantics have some good rates that come out later.
Yeah, that's true.
But that one is so late into the school year. I bet that's going to have some like crazy rates. Just something for you all to keep in mind.
Yep.
But then after that, it settles into Port Canaveral. It's got a rotation of mostly 4 and 5 night sailings. It does have a one-off 3-night sailing,
which has a stop at Castaway and then a day at sea. So to have a day at sea and a 3-night is super rare.
Yeah, that is true.
And then
it's a nice little tie-in. Like if you're going to do a double dip, tying that with the next sailing would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Which is it?
I will hunt for it.
We have to find it. Is it a 5-night? No. Whatever.
Yeah. So we said, they used to put asterisks if there was just like a single change in an itinerary, but now everything is lined. So it does make this a little bit more cluttered for us to look at.
It's a very small screen.
It is also very small to read if you're not full screen or you're on your phone. But anyways, the majority of its other itineraries are 4 and 5 nights here.
I found it.
You gotta, what is it?
It's going to be a 5-night Bahamian so you could do your 3-night with the day at sea and Castaway, and then a 5-night, which is going to go to Castaway, Lookout Key, Nassau, day at sea. It's a good itinerary. That same itinerary is going to be for Christmas on the Fantasy. So and New Year's. So if that is something, if you wanted to decide if you wanted to spend a holiday on the Fantasy, it would be doing that 5-night Castaway, Lookout, Nassau, day at sea. That's not bad.
No, not at all.
Fantasy's so gorgeous at Christmas. She's just so she's my favorite ship. We've said this, but if I had to pick my favorite time to go on my favorite ship, it would be Christmas on the Fantasy. So there you go.
I have not gotten to experience any of the holiday sailings.
Are you allowed to travel at the holidays? No, you can't, probably.
There is a very small window that I can, but it's just very difficult. Typically, someone else might already have it. So, I would need to book this, when it comes out and be like, hey, in 2025, I'm doing this.
Okay.
It's the first week of December, essentially.
Oh, that's the holiday time frame you're allowed to leave?
Yeah. And then after that, you're all holiday work. But anyways, getting back on track here. Yeah, the Fantasy 4 and 5 nights, basically the 5 nights are either that rotation we just talked about, or it does have Lookout Key, Castaway Key with 2 days at sea, which is pretty cool. You should just take a note here that we are talking a lot about Nassau days being missing here. Just something we will swing back around to later, put a little pin in that. Yeah, really not too much more to talk about the Fantasy.
I lied. By the way, the Fantasy's New Year's Eve cruise is a 4-night. So apparently I don't know how to do math, but it's a random 5-night is in the middle. And then you leave on New Year's Eve for the Fantasy, which I had marked off. Again, math.
That sounds pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
Do you imagine how lively that ship would be that first night?
Oh my God.
I mean, I'm sure any New Year's Eve.
The first night on the Fantasy, and that's the New Year's Eve night. Yeah.
All right. Well, rounding out Port Canaveral, we do have one more ship to talk about with literally an individual sailing. And then we can get into what's going on there. We're talking about the Magic. What's that?
Magic has a couple sailings.
Oh, a couple sailings. I'm sorry. I was sorry. I have noted, I think, the last one.
Like a half a dozen.
Yep. So the Magic has a couple sailings. What do we got? 4-night, 5-night.
There's 3 different 4-night itineraries. No. And 1 5-night. The Magic will leave from Port Canaveral. So the Magic is there basically in October. It's there till the Fantasy gets back. Oh, there you go.
Because it is there through the summer, which we had talked about.
Right. That makes sense. And then, so then she leaves, the Magic leaves in October, at the end of October, basically the same day. And as the Fantasy leaves Europe, and she goes to San Juan.
Yep. So she has a 4-night sailing from Port Canaveral ending in San Juan. And that just does Nassau, Lookout, and then day at sea. And then getting in San Juan, we've got an expanded Southern Caribbean sailing, which I think is something we have been asking for and looking for a while. Now, we did have 2 this literally past year that just happened, but now we've expanded to 3, which is almost a whole month in San Juan doing Southern Caribbean sailings. And they are all just a little bit different as well, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so you can go to St. Kitts, Antigua, Aruba, Curacao on one. Then you have St. Kitts. And note that you are in the ABC Islands and pretty far south during hurricane season, which the ABC Islands are technically outside of the hurricane belt. So depending on what else the ships are doing, right, it could provide you with that little bit of extra protection. And then the other 7-night Southern Caribbean sailings go to St. Kitts, St. Lucia, Barbados, Dominica, and Antigua, and then Aruba, Curacao, Antigua, St. Kitts. Those are great itineraries.
Yeah, I mean, they're all places that I am wildly unfamiliar with because I have not gotten to get down that south. But awesome sailings there. I would love to be able to get onto one of those.
One day. Those are all, 2 of those are Halloween and the High Seas.
Yep. And then after that, the Magic is doing its little tour here, I'm going to call it, little world tour, because it goes to Galveston, Texas on November 14th. It does a 6-night Bahamian, which is a pretty cool sailing as well. It does Lookout, Castaway, 3 days at sea. And then it ends in Galveston, Texas. And once it gets to Galveston, Texas, it's doing 4, 5, 7-night Western Caribbeans.
Yes.
Really, really standard.
And just to note, because of where the islands and Bahamas are located, to that port, you will not make it to any of Disney's destinations on the Magic from those ports.
Nope. You will be seeing a lot of Cozumel, Costa Maya, and Progreso.
Yep.
That is pretty much your destinations for there. Not that they're bad destinations, but you are missing out on the Castaway and the Lookout.
Can't get there in time and to get back. and she's doing that all the way through. So November through April, she'll be in Galveston. So 2025 into 2026. And then we have ourselves another Panama Canal cruise.
Yes, we do. Which I think, have we been missing a Panama Canal cruise for a little while now? Because the Wonder has not come back this way.
Right. And then the other, yes, basically because of that.
Yeah. So the Magic is heading over to San Diego. And there are no further cruises after that, which is interesting as well. Just something else to note right before Alaska season starts.
Yeah, but that's still a month and a half. Like, that's a month and a half before Alaska season starts.
Oh, I'm sure ending in San Diego, it'll do a stint in San Diego. Yeah, it's just, I'm wondering if it's either going to stay down in San Diego or if if they're looking to expand Alaska. I don't know. It's just interesting that there'll be 2 ships over there eventually.
She's not leaving though, right?
I don't know.
The fleet?
Oh, I don't think so.
She's still so beautiful.
She is. She's one of my favorites. She just had
that whole rehab. She can't be leaving, so she's got to be doing something. We'll learn all about it. Apparently in the summer release or at some later time. I guess it has to be in the summer 2026 release, right?
Yeah.
But basically after April 21st or something like that, we have no idea what she's doing. So.
Yep. And we want to swing it back to Florida to talk about our last ship here. Not our last ship, but our last Florida ship.
Sure.
All right, so we were talking about the Dream. Dream is home ported out of Fort Lauderdale, so it is not leaving that little circle there. Pretty standard for what the Dream's already doing. We've got 3 nights that do Lookout and Nassau, and then we've got 4 nights that do Lookout, Nassau, Day at Sea. A couple more 4 nights that are Lookout, Castaway, Day at Sea, and then also the Nassau, Castaway, Day at Sea. So any combination of those 3, it's doing it.
Right. And so again, yeah, you'll just look at your schedule and figure out what fits and see what island locations you get to go to. I found it interesting that there wasn't any double dips. I guess they have to weigh. That's what I need somebody to do. Okay, people. I need you to get out your calendars and chart these ships and determine, although we don't know what dates people are at which ports, right? But
if you go onto the actual booking, you will be able to chart.
Okay.
Because it'll tell you the order.
Because then we could see where the holes are, but there's no double dips, which is just to me a surprise because the double dips are always super exciting, but there's none that include 2 stops at Castaway or 2 stops at Lookout during the same sailing. They could have created, if they had enough berths in these island locations, right? They could have created basically what we had, just with less sea days. So anyway, that's not there.
Yeah, they might just be trying to spread it out too, especially with the Lookout hype right now, or some hype. I think you should be hyped for it. But it also has 5-night sailings
that we can easily get to ever. So it's a gorgeous beach.
But it's got its rotation of 5-night sailings. Same deal. Basically, you're picking 3 locations. You got Nassau, Castaway, Lookout, Day at Sea. You got some Lookout, Castaway, 2 days at sea, which is pretty nice. And then you got Nassau, Castaway, Day at Sea. And it does have 1 random Western Caribbean in there where you're doing Cozumel, Castaway, and 2 days at sea.
Oh, right. Yep.
But that brings us into our last ship here, which has a very diverse portfolio here.
It does.
So we are talking about the Wonder, which of course is going to start these sailings with a 10-night Hawaiian on September 23rd, leaving from Vancouver, going to Hawaii, and you're going to hit Honolulu, I cannot pronounce all of these names.
Yeah,
but
I can't either. And I need to
we need
look up.
Steve for this one.
We need Steve. And we didn't look up. We are bad hosts because we forgot to look up what their islands really are. One of them's the Big Island, right, Hilo? But so we have to look up those. But you're going to hit lovely Hawaiian Islands.
Yep, with 5 days at sea on the front end of that. And then leaving from Hawaii, you are going to have the 14-night South Pacific cruise, which again leaves from Honolulu and ends in Sydney, Australia. Looks like this itinerary is pretty much exactly the same. You've got American Samoa, Fiji, New Caledonia, of course, Sydney, Australia, and then 10 days at sea.
Yep.
Which we have a couple shows out of the from both ends of those sailings, and they do sound pretty cool, but they are a lot of days at sea.
Yes. And then she's going to get into Australia and mostly do shorter cruises for locals, basically, right? So she's got 3 to 5 night cruises that mostly don't hit on new ports, except that there's a one-way cruise leaving Melbourne and going to Auckland, New Zealand. And then she actually does 2 sailings in New Zealand. So like for those people for those individuals, and they go to like 2 different stops in New Zealand. That would be super cool, but obviously quite the journey. Oh, there's a couple of other like 3 nights from New Zealand as well. So I guess you could build yourself a week-long back-to-back cruise if you wanted. And
it does transition to Melbourne as well, and it does some Melbourne sailings. But as Christy noted, these are all marked as the Disney Magic at Sea, right, which basically means it is tailored to local clientele. But it does have some more longer sailings compared to last time. I think wasn't last time the 5-night was the longest option, and there was like one of them.
And it still didn't go to any ports. Like it went to Sydney or something, whatever it was like one port of nothing.
These are still sea day heavy. There is a 5-night sailing that's all sea days, but then you do have one of the New Zealand sailings does have 2 stops in New Zealand. And then you have one Australian sailing where it goes to Eden and looks like it's probably got front loaded 2 days at sea and a day at sea on the backside of that, if I had to guess.
Yes. So those are super fun for getting all the onboard activities, which is exciting. There's a couple of 3-day. Did you say this already? There's a couple of 3-night Disney Magic at Sea that literally are just 2 days at sea.
Yep. That is most of them.
Oh,
it's just where they leave out of.
But they leave from different ports.
Yes, it is actually all of them.
Oh my gosh, it is.
All of the 3 days are
I missed that.
Which isn't the worst thing, honestly.
I love a good get on a ship, makes it your own. You have the ocean going by. It's my favorite. But then there's like the new sort of
fun itinerary.
And that is a 10-night over Christmas from Auckland, ending in Sydney. And it does like
it's all New Zealand ports.
Yeah.
So it looks like it probably circles around the island there.
That would be amazing.
That is quite the itinerary there.
That is an incredible itinerary. You could do a couple of days in New Zealand beforehand if you wanted, or just count on your sailing to get you some New Zealand time. And then you'll have spent all that time, and you still have, maybe if your kids are off or you're off for Christmas, you get more time off where you don't have to be back. You can see Australia a little bit before you head back. Like if you were coming from the States to go there. Oh my God. That's a really cool itinerary. Airfare will cost more than the cruise probably.
But a cool itinerary.
So cool.
But to cap off the season then, it's Australian season, you do have a 15-night South Pacific sailing leaving on February 2nd. Pretty much similar, Yeah, pretty similar ports there, except you do have one more stop in Hawaii there. And it looks like you are missing Fiji. Oh, no, you have Fiji. Which one are you missing there? You are... Oh, no, sorry.
None,
I'm just switching Australia with Hawaii.
And because it doesn't have Sydney listed as a port, it makes it look less.
Yep. And note, it is a 15-night sailing, but it has less days at sea and less port stops because you are basically like losing this day.
Right. From the international date line.
Yep. But then it ends in Hawaii again, and you have another 10-night Hawaiian sailing, moving the other way towards Vancouver. And then from Vancouver, there is one more sailing to talk about. It has the Vancouver to San Diego transitioning sailing. Unfortunately, once again, this is just days at sea, which is crazy because people seem to have liked it when it did the stops in between.
And it could go, frankly, Oregon is a stop that cruise ships are going to. There's whatever that city up there in Oregon is. But then there's
San Francisco.
San Francisco.
Yep. Or even, what's the other Canada port? Victoria.
I feel like that's too far. I don't think that works.
I think it would.
But I could be wrong about that.
I'm pretty sure it would. It's very close to Vancouver, technically. But anyways, the thing to note there is it gets back to San Diego February 29th. Or, sorry, February is a weird month. So it would be like March 1st, March 2nd-ish. And the Panama Canal cruise does not get there from the Magic till April 5th. So what is going on there? Do they have enough business that they can have two ships sailing?
Oh, right. Well, right. What's going to happen after? Because then the Wonder is doing all their 3-night California cruises until it goes away. It goes, in theory,
back up to Alaska. Yeah, so
have that cruise where it goes back? I don't think we do.
No, I don't think we have when it goes back yet.
So that'll be part of summer. But it's doing 3-night cruise, 3 and 4 night, and then there's 1 7-night at the very end of April. I find that date to be a little bit odd because it's like outside of the normal spring break time. It's going to be outside of the spring break time for California residents. And, people like a good 7-night cruise for spring break. The only spring break that might hit is like the Northeast. And who knows if they're going to California to go on that cruise. But otherwise, something to note is it is now hitting Catalina Island in a lot more of the sailings than it had in the past, and Ensenada together. So it's not switching them off. There's only 2 sailings from these Baja sailings that even go to just Ensenada. So the rest go to Catalina and Ensenada, and then the 4 nights have a day at sea. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I've heard good things from Catalina too. I would love to experience that. Liz, one of our Patreons, is watching live. She said when she did her Vancouver repositioning cruise, they did a stop in Victoria.
Oh, well, there you go.
And she also says that she wishes that it had done a stop in San Francisco, though.
For sure.
We all agree with that. But that, I think, about rounds out all the ships here, except for one, I want to say hole here, but it really does not exist yet. But we talked about the Destiny, and probably hearing an announcement, probably another reason why this one feels a little bit early is because the Destiny will have its own release date in the fall. We are guessing that we are going to hear about that at D23. And I think even when they announced the Wish at D23, or whenever they did the announcement, didn't the booking start 3 or 4 days later?
Well, it wouldn't be.
No, it wasn't D23. It was like a Wish showcase that we had when we booked that. But it seems like here they're probably ready to make some money. So I would not be surprised that we get a more comprehensive look at the Destiny here. But the big hole here is that Fort Lauderdale only has one ship, and it is more than capable of handling 2 or more ships. Disney Go ahead.
They just built out that port.
Yes, Disney just invested a lot of money. There are other itineraries that we've discussed where there's multiple ships down there. But what is kind of interesting is as of January of 2024, Fort Lauderdale does support LNG refueling for cruise ships. And when I was looking through the Fort Lauderdale Port Everglades site, they are very excited that they are announcing a lot of ships home porting there and a lot of ships beginning their inaugural sailings out of there from other cruise lines. So it seems like maybe Fort Lauderdale is incentivizing cruise companies to basically come and host some bigger, more eccentric ships out of there. So I don't know what the dealings are behind that, but it has LNG. Disney's invested into the port infrastructure already. So it seems very likely that the Destiny is going to be sailing that. Now, unfortunately, and this is completely my hunch here, I kind of hope I'm wrong. I think that means the Destiny is not going to be sailing very interesting itineraries. Reason being is we see a lot of Nassau missing in this.
No.
And as Christy said, there are no double dips. They're trying to spread the ships out where they're going, which will probably leave holes for both of those destinations. But I think that means that the Destiny will be destined to sail probably 3, 4, 5 nights.
But they could have a proper 7-night.
They can, and we did discuss that there are Sundays open with the Dream schedule, which would still be great if it does 7 nights out of there. I think that would be wonderful for it. However, part of the whole Lighthouse agreement was that there was a significant increase in stops to Nassau and Bohemian ports, which basically ties that ship to going to probably Nassau Castaway Lookout. And that is about as adventurous as Disney wants to get in the Bahamas.
But if you actually look at how many times the Fantasy is going there now, when the Fantasy wouldn't have, right? Because it was busy doing its 7-night itineraries. Maybe I'm just going to hold out hope that because of the other ships, we've got the Magic going there sometimes. We have the Fantasy. We have the Dream. Like, are they going to really make another ship do these same exact
They've been doing it for decades.
Tours? Yes, but...
And the Magic is going to a completely different coast.
Yes, but there's still an extra ship. So, okay, my vote is that it's going to do a 7-night and maybe a little random longer one on occasion or something. So maybe we just get a one-off, but 7 nights on Sunday. I think dream.
7 nights are the best scenario. My guess is still, again, I don't think it's going to be 3 and 4 nights consistently. I don't think Fort Lauderdale, I don't think enough people want to travel down to Fort Lauderdale for 3 and 4 night sailings. So it's either going to be 3, 4, 5 nights or hopefully 7-night sailings. But unless they, I was going to say, unless they find some new ports, I do think you're going to be tied to probably Nassau Castaway Lookout.
You know what's interesting? Celebrity cruises out of Fort Lauderdale, and they have 7-night. Their newer ships are all 7-night cruises, and they still do a stop a lot of times in Nassau. So you could potentially still do a 7-night with a stop in Nassau.
Oh, you absolutely can, and I'm not saying
saying that they right. Of course you can, but I'm saying there are other major cruise lines doing that. So maybe if they had to. But I need some new ports. There are so many, like Belize and Honduras. Like we need to get there.
I agree. And I mean, you even have like Bermuda as an option. You've got time to get there on a 7-night sailing.
That would be a summer because Bermuda's too climatey, not in the summer.
Right. But again, it's definitely going to Nassau, and it'll hit one or two, or if not both of the private islands, because even just looking at the Wish doing those Castaway Lookout day at sea sailings, you are losing like 20 days at Nassau.
We're gaining it with the Fantasy. Look at how many ships, look at how many times the Fantasy is going there now. So I don't know. I feel like you're swapping it.
I don't think you are.
I think you are.
I think the Destiny's going to Nassau.
How about that?
All right. I mean, I hope you're right. I really do. I said I hope I'm wrong, but I think logically this is probably what's going down.
All right. Well, let's see. We'll find out in August. 2 months.
Hopefully.
Or we have like listeners like Chad and other sleuthy listeners who can go and pull out the NASA schedule for next fall, the end of the fall, right? Because, you know, the Destiny's going to take a while to get out, and look for whether or not there's an unnamed ship or something like that in port, or a ship that doesn't match what's already listed.
I wonder, though, if it will be the fall, because there is nothing else. Doesn't have to be.
When is it going to be? They said it was going to be in 2025. They're not going to release it in the summer. And there's the fiscal year. Doesn't fiscal year not start until October? So it's
they launched the Wish in the summer.
Yeah, but I don't think it said. I feel like.
I think you're right. I think it did. I just wouldn't be surprised if this is earlier than what we're seeing with like the Treasure.
Mean, I don't think it's going to release on Christmas week again.
No, I hope not.
I feel like that was a choice that I don't understand still, especially if the naming ceremony is occurring in November, which we don't really know if it's occurring in November, but didn't like there's media days in November in New York. So what is she doing for a month? I guess they can name her and then finish her like they did for the Wish when they were literally like laying the carpet during the Atlantic.
Well, that is going to do it. Thank you for listening to this episode of the DCL Podcast, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.